All right, today we have an awesome guest on the Real Estate Marketing with Norm podcast, Ryan Lundquist of Sacramento Appraisals. Did I get that all right, Ryan?
You got it. You got it. Hey, thanks for having me on, Norm. Looking forward to this.
No problem. We're honored because when I say we, that's me and all my team and the voices in my head. We're honored to have you on because you're a bit of a superstar in the real estate community in Sacramento and doing some great things. So why don't you give yourself a quick shout out and introduction?
Sure thing. Well, my name's Ryan Lundquist. I'm an appraiser. Been an appraiser since 2003. Love Sacramento. Love what I do. I'm always crunching numbers and looking for sort of the story of the market. So, family man, married. I have two teenage sons. So I'm sort of in the thick of it in life. That's sort of the big thing for me lately.
Man, I know that's all consuming, right? It's like, yeah, just try to have a full-time job while you're managing a household, but with two teenage sons, huh?
Oh, for sure. You feel like a good person and a good parent until the kids get older. Then you're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. So,
Oh, man. I don't have kids myself, but I'm sure it's a complete, just stumble forward, do the best you can, huh?
oh, for sure. And they're great kids. It's just unknown territory. That's all. So.
Now, are you grooming them to be, top flight appraisers when they get older, or are they interested with what you do at all, or no?
I think I'll probably turn them off by real estate conversations. I think anyone who works in real estate, it's like you're driving through town, you're like, hey, I appraised that one, or how's this going to impact value? And I think they're probably pretty safely turned off. But, I think they'd rather be like any kid today. What do you want to be? Either it's a YouTube star or a professional, gamer. So I think that's much more exciting than being an appraiser.
I weep for our future, bro. I tell you, with all that stuff, right? you get you get a lot of not just teenagers, but people in their 20s, and they don't get the whole work portion of it. They think like if they have 10,000 followers on Instagram, excuse me, and they could show that they're having fun and doing their thing and out there traveling or at the club or something, that the money's just going to come rolling in. And sometimes it does, but the real world is built on a little bit more brick and mortar than that, huh?
Well, yeah. Then, is your life really one of substance? And are you really happy, or are you just, online and getting likes and attention? And, at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters. It won't matter for me, and it won't matter for anyone.
Yeah, very true, man. And by the way, are you from Sacramento originally?
No. I grew up in Southern California, and my wife and I relocated here about 2001 or 2002. I don't remember which, but yeah, kids were born here, and so our roots are here. I hope to never leave. So unless I get the lottery, then I'll have an island somewhere. So.
Ooh, that's a good call. Hey, let me be your pool boy and butler / servant there if you get the island, huh?
Definitely.
Hey, you joke about that, man, but there's actually like islands out here. Philippines, where I'm at, 7,500 islands. There's actually islands for sale, or more realistically, parts of islands for sale. But pretty incredible in today's world. You could still do that without being a billionaire.
No, that's pretty cool. Do you have any idea what they cost?
Man, it's all over the board, and it gets a little complex with real estate ownership. So a lot of times you need like a corporation with 5 board members, but 3 of them have to be local Filipinos. Only 2 could be foreigners. The easiest way to do it actually is, instead of buying the land, is to do like a 99-year lease.
Gotcha.
Some, you can still buy stuff, but some countries, they do that, and it's like you're going to have it for your lifetime and probably, most of your kids' lifetime or whatever, or you could renew the lease or whatever, but then you could open a business, a hotel, a dive shop, whatever you want. So,
very cool, man. Maybe a Starbucks franchise or something. So.
Hey, you joke. They have them all over. And in fact, there's this island, Boracay, and it's been called like the world's #1 island, but I'm sure there's about 100 islands that claim that. But this insanely nice, super white beach, crazy sand. It's like talcum powder, but it goes on for like 6 kilometers or something like that. What is that? I don't know, a couple of miles, 2-3 miles, right? And so it's really long. Yeah, gorgeous, and it's definitely crowded along there because there's so much tourism. But they have the nicest Starbucks in the world, where you're on a white sand beach. You walk through a grove of palm trees, and the white sand goes right up to the front door of this modern. It just looks like any other Starbucks, like a nice glass door, aircon, and you walk in a normal Starbucks, but it's palm trees and white sand right up to the front door. It's pretty darn cool.
That's amazing. I'll have to Google that. So, maybe I missed my calling in life. I need to be an island appraiser.
No, oh, island appraiser, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, so break down for us who aren't that smart like me. What is an appraisal? What's the scoop on that?
Sure. So an appraisal would be an opinion of value, and it's usually written in a report. I mean, it can be verbal or communicated in different ways, but it'd be written in a report, and just to help establish and support that this is the value that the appraiser says exists based on data and lots of different things to just really show that if you lined up 100 buyers, what's the most probable price that this property should bring in the market? That's usually the answer that the question that an appraiser is answering in a typical appraisal report for a loan anyway.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And so that's a bit of a double-edged sword, because 2 words that stood out. You said it's an opinion, but data. And so you walk the fine line between, like you said, giving an estimate of value, but actually basing it 100% on factual data, right?
Yeah, well, value is complex. Value is it's subjective in some regards, because the market is emotional. You're having buyers who are buying based on circumstances and finances, and they're making this emotional decision. And an appraiser drops in and parachutes in and answers the question: what's the most probable price that buyers should pay out of everything? And in the market. And I think when people hear the word opinion, sometimes it's like, oh, that's so subjective. But it's an opinion that is supported, or that should be supported, by actual data and by market facts. I mean, there's also, market perception and understanding the motivations of, why are buyers buying? And, you don't get that stuff by looking at, square footage and bedroom and bathroom count. You understand that just by understanding, here's why the market's moving the way it is. And so there's a lot of different layers to it. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So that is interesting, because there's, like, if I'm understanding right, there's so many micro factors, but also macro factors. And so someone who, you're not going to go out to Connecticut and do an appraisal because you don't know the market. You don't know intimately what's going up, what's down, where, all these different things are twists and turns are headed. But that's also why appraisals shouldn't be handled by like a big overseeing website that just plugs in a few numbers to an algorithm, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. It's kind of like you always say, there's, you can't smell if 20 cats live there, an algorithm can't. And you don't know about the condition, and you might not know about the idiosyncrasies of a particular neighborhood, where sometimes one street can make or break value, where, this is the street to be, or maybe this one street has a different view, or it backs to a lake. I mean, there's so many different factors that can make value move in different ways.
Like if, not to interject, but exactly what you said, like if you're in the fabulous 40s versus if you're on 39th Street, it may look exactly the same. It may be the same construction, but it ain't the Fab 40s, right?
Yeah, but technically, I would say Fab 40s goes from 38 through 47. So they should have said the Fab high 30s and 40s. So, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
It doesn't have the same ring to it, though,
huh? Yeah.
So, bro, who actually orders an appraisal, and who actually owns it once you produce it?
Yeah, so it depends on whether it's a private appraisal or one for a loan. Because if it's a private appraisal for a divorce or estate planning, or arguments with neighbors, or I mean, whatever the reason is. It might be the homeowner, it might be a tenant, it could be a lawyer or CPA, anyone ordering it. But if it's for a loan, it's typically it's the lender, and they probably use an appraisal management company, this third party business, to sort of mediate between the lender and the appraiser. And so it's fully that company who's ordering for loans. It's never directly the borrower. It's not the loan officer like it used to be, which honestly is probably a good thing. It's never the realtor. And who owns it? It's actually the lender. And so the borrower might have paid for it, or maybe even some loan officers, reimburse the borrower at times, but it doesn't matter who pays for it. The client is actually the party that orders it.
Yeah.
Okay? So the borrower is a user of the report. They can use it, but really the client is actually the lender.
Now, it's interesting. One thing you said that sounds like a big change is that it's not loan officers ordering appraisals anymore like it used to be. And that was probably when I was in real estate in Sacramento, leading up to and through the collapse. And maybe there was undue pressure or influence from lenders on appraisers. Is that why they made that change?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's actually a couple days ago, it was a 10-year anniversary of something called HVCC, the Home Valuation Code of Conduct. And what that did, that basically made it separated the ordering system from the appraisers, because there's a ton of influence or people calling up and saying, hey man, if you can hit the number, then I'll go ahead and send this order. And so that's unethical for appraisers to do, but it's really sort of promising value based on a predetermined value. Like, hey, can you give a comp check and call me in 5 minutes? If you think it looks okay, then boom, I'll send this your way. And so, and then if you have appraisers who are hungry, who need business, and it just creates an environment.
That's a nightmare. That's just asking for, that's a slippery slope to nowhere good, huh?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it's not ethical on the part of the person asking either. I mean, that's not a good deal. And sometimes, I get kind of dirty looks sometimes when I say stuff like that. But then I just remind people, hey, if would you ask an appraiser that if the Department of Real Estate was in the room with you, or if the CFPB or whoever oversees loans? I mean, if they're in the room, we wouldn't be talking with appraisers like that. So there is this ethical dynamic, and we just want to be careful. Appraisers supposed to be neutral, a third party, give an unbiased opinion of value, but it doesn't always shake out like that. It certainly didn't during the bubble years.
Yeah, man, that must have been just throw anything up on the wall and see what sticks. And I know you're always completely above board and ethical and, leading the industry and doing it correctly. So I'm sure that was equally as frustrating as it was, anything else, when seeing all these fly-by-night appraisals and seeing all the impropriety and even the scams. And share a little bit about your experience during that mortgage meltdown and financial collapse.
Yeah, well, for me, what's interesting is that I started in 2003. So all I knew at first was a market that was increasing. Okay, and because values began to turn around in about 98, and so it's been about 5 years of the marketing piece. But then 2004 and 2005, things just went absolutely nuts, and that's where there was mass speculation. People were paying insane prices, and in hindsight, we look back and go, "What were you smoking? Why in the world would you pay that?" But at the time, it was real, and so it's almost like there's appraisal fraud happening here, but at the same time, lenders were handing out money, to anyone who could fog a mirror, and there was very little, strict underwriting, to say the least, in those days. And so, then the music stopped and the market burst. And for me, I was wrapped up, and all I was working for at the time, for the most part, were loan officers who, were doing 100% financing. And, that market with adjustable rate mortgages blew up. And so I think I woke up thinking, where did my clients go? They were all out of business. The refinance market died. And this was a market that was built on these loans happening and only when equity was in play. And so when the equity stopped and prices began to plummet, that really dried up. So for me, it was I think it was a struggle, and because I had to invent ways to find money. I had to find new clients, and I was selling everything on Craigslist, and trying to, I don't have a baseball card collection anymore because of those years. I got rid of so many material possessions because it was just more important to pay my bills. But most importantly, I think I just learned a lot about being diversified in business, and really working with the type of clients that I want to work for. And I would never want to go back to that anyway with such a shady environment.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I didn't. That's what I came into. Not that I was inflating values or anything, but I don't like my name on loans that are bad, even if I'm not the one that's making the loan.
Yeah, and hopefully that market was an anomaly. Hopefully we won't see that again for whatever reason. Whether we're wiser for it as consumers, regulation, a more normalized market. But yeah, you're right. That just brought out, the worst in everyone, and everyone was in that same boat when it crashed. I describe it a lot because I have other guests on the podcast who have been through that, as have I. And going to work every day was like you're getting punched in the gut as hard as you can, and then you got to show up the next day, and it's coming, but there's nothing you could do. So. Everyone was losing homes, going bankrupt, but still trying to keep the facade going that things were, hunky-dory. But
yeah, oh, for sure. And here's a stat: in 2009, 10 years ago, during the first quarter of the year, 84% of all sales in Sacramento County were either foreclosures or short sales. 84% for the entire quarter. It was. So when we think about struggle, it wasn't just a few people here and there. And sure, some people weathered the storm. They held on to their houses. But the bulk of people lost. It was a dark time. That's for certain.
Yeah, and the stress. It's not just losing the material possessions. It's the stress. People were checked out. It was like Walking Dead with a bunch of zombies. No one could sleep, and people getting their relationships impacted and not knowing where their next paycheck's coming from. So, yeah, we've moved on to a healthier, more normalized market. Thank goodness, huh?
Oh, for sure. And at the time too, unemployment was skyrocketing. The job market was impacted, and so it wasn't just houses, but it was a struggle. The whole economy just tanked. It's sort of, The Big Short. It really happened. The movie was based on reality.
It's a good movie. So. It's a damn good movie. It breaks it down pretty well, huh?
It's a killer movie. I love that one.
Yeah. So now when you're talking about appraisals, the new improved market here, what are some common misconceptions that you still see about appraisals, whether it's by realtors, loan officers, or homeowners and consumers?
There's a few things. I think one of the things I see most is that value is there just because one buyer is willing to pay it. But you might have a buyer who's willing to pay a certain price, but that doesn't mean that it represents market value. Okay, It's not the value of one individual. Okay, because one individual might buy in a certain neighborhood. Maybe they need to move right away. They need to move, 1031 exchange. Maybe they need to live on the same street as an elderly parent, or get in a certain school district, or downsize, upsize. There's so many different reasons why some people overpay, or frankly, sometimes borrowers, they're qualified for $500,000. They're putting very little money down, and they're just going to offer whatever the list price is. And so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that value is always there just because the contract's there. And that's not really the case, because value isn't about the individual. It's about what would the most probable price be that the market would pay for this property. So if you lined up a bunch of interested and qualified buyers, what would be reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what the story that an appraisal should tell. And I think on that note too, there's that idea of dollar for dollar, that, hey, I put in a $50,000 kitchen, and so my house is worth $50,000 more, or I put in this pool for $45,000, so let's price $45,000 higher. It's harder than we think to get dollar for dollar out of real estate like that.
It's
really
basically
well
impossible,
HGTV,
right?
But
it's basically, it doesn't work that way, right?
Well, yeah. Even think about there's a magazine called Remodeling Magazine, and they have this list that they put out every year that says, "Here's what a kitchen, gives you. Here's a bathroom remodel, how much value it gives." And the ironic thing is, almost every single item that they give, even though I don't buy into their list wouldn't make sense in every location. But even though I don't buy into their list, almost every single item is less than the cost. And so I think we have to realize that in real estate, because it's a myth, except on maybe reality TV.
Yeah, those shows do a lot of disservice when they put these ideas in people's heads that, hey, it's so easy to flip a home and make a profit. It's damn hard to flip a home and make a significant profit.
Oh, it is, especially in today's market. I think, there's hardly any foreclosures, and it's hard to find really low priced properties. So there's just less room to flip and less room to rehab and make a profit on what it's actually worth when it is remodeled.
Hey, you should think about that since we started talking about, YouTube stars and Instagram. Maybe you should have your own TV show,
huh? I'm not hot enough, no way. So
you could dress up like Dog the Bounty Hunter or something like that and roll around Sacramento. I don't know what they do,
There we go. If I ever start doing that, you'll know that business is really suffering. So
that's a good sign.
If I create myself like that,
that's a sign that something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, be concerned. Be concerned.
So you talked about the Remodeling Magazine, and there's many lists of the ROI for improvements and stuff. But aside from just remodeling, what are some of the home value things that actually boost your value the best? I mean, I know that it's funny. One of the best ones is just painting your front door, right? I mean, you spend $100 or you do it yourself, but it's actually probably dollar for dollar. But what are the ones that you could boost your value with a pretty efficient ROI?
Yeah. So, first, if you back up, what sells a house? First of all, it's the location. You can have the best house in the world. If it's in the wrong location, it almost doesn't matter what you do to it because you're in the wrong location. But, the big things sway value. Remodel kitchen, remodel bathrooms, the layout, all that stuff. But that's significant money. And so if someone had, $1,000 or $2,000 to spend to prep their house for the market, I would say absolutely focus on the small stuff. Paint the door, get a new mailbox, get a few really nice fixtures in the house. Spend money and then paint a few of the rooms. Get a trendy, on point gray color or whatever it is for that market. And you can easily make a house feel a little bit more dynamic. Put a little bling in the house because buyers love bling, and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, look at this, the owner did that." But it's not like, "Hey, I spent $4,000 on switch plates and faucets," and people are going to say, "Great, well, congrats. I'm not paying for that though." Yeah. So I just focus on the stuff that's, I think, maybe going to make a great first impression. That'll probably help most.
Yeah, that first impression, that curb appeal. Don't dump a bunch of money into the third bedroom, or even the backyard. It's like all when a buyer gets out of their car and they're walking up to the front door, and then when they first walk in and go straight to the kitchen, basically that's where you want to make your impression, huh?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I would tell people when they ask, what should I do to my house? I'd say, look at the comps, walk through the homes in the neighborhood and what's selling at top dollar. What are buyers really paying for? Because the advice that we give might be different depending on the price range and the neighborhood, the county and stuff. And so, and if properties don't have remodeled kitchens, but they're selling for almost the same level as homes with remodel, then, why spend your money? And so I think that's where we have to listen to the market and say, well, what are homes really worth here? What are buyers paying for in this neighborhood? Because the value of things is going to differ depending on what we're looking at. Like in some neighborhoods, a pool is a non-negotiable. Where I run stats and properties above $1 million in certain zip codes, 70% or more of homes have pools, and wow, that's a big deal. But you look in some neighborhoods in Sacramento, and less than 1% of all homes have a pool, and so you think, okay, the market's not going to pay that for this area. And so it's not just about pools, but we have to look, to other things too. I mean, what are people paying for, remodeled kitchens, and, what type of flooring are they digging, and, what's selling at the top. And, in some areas it's a big deal for, all these things. And in other areas, maybe it's an investor neighborhood. And, it's like, don't make the remodel like a owner-occupied remodel when this is going to be purchased by an investor who wants to save money.
Yeah, and that's also why, all this information is why realtors and, listing agents should have your number on speed dial, or even better, read your weekly blog and everything, so they understand these conditions and what money is well spent from their clients before they start dumping a bunch of money into a home that they're selling and hoping to get a certain return.
Hey, I never mind being on speed dial. Happy to offer insight if I have it.
Yeah. So what are on the flip side, what are some home value killers, whether in the house or neighborhood factors?
Sure. So I think if you drop me into a community I didn't know anything about, one of the ways I would determine where the highest priced homes were is I'd say, show me the school districts and wages. And so higher income earners are going to most likely be in school districts with better scores. And that would be almost the biggest determiner of value in a neighborhood. And so outside of the house, what's happening with the school district, the local economy, the commercial sector, I mean, those are really big factors. But, inside a house, things that can, kill value. I mean, things like smell and, sometimes weird, atypical floor plans, or, if a house only has 2 bedrooms and it's really a 3-bedroom neighborhood, sometimes that's a really big deal. Or there's a weird layout, the owner technically added on, 2 additions, but then it just feels odd, and like what the heck were they smoking here? Then, those things kill value. And obviously homes that are totally trashed, mess houses, definitely not good for value. So
good for investors or buyers. I had a good buddy of mine that I actually grew up with, and he moved out to California, and he was looking for a place, and it was up in Auburn. And he called me one day, and he was so excited, and he's like, "Oh my God, I found the perfect place. It's on 5 acres, it has a pond, a pool, it has a huge barn garage, and it's perfect, but the place is just trashed." And so he was excited about it because he knew the potential of fixing it up. But we went in there, and of course it was a meth lab, meth house, whatever you want to call it. I'm not down with all the proper meth terms, but so it was.
So you didn't watch Breaking Bad?
I actually did not. I'm like the one person on the planet who didn't get into that, But we went in there, and
it's actually good, Norm.
I will check it out. I have to do my meth research more, I guess. But it was as bad as you could think, with like rotting food and like satanic rituals being performed there, and like who knows what else. But he got it for a song, and he's happy as a clam. I mean, it's probably doubled in value since then. So there's definitely potential with. One person's mess is another person's windfall, I guess.
I guess so. I guess that sounds like a fortune cookie, a bad one maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find that when people do stuff that's too user specific, that's usually a bad thing for value. And so if someone has some sort of zebra fetish, and they think the whole house is like zebra wallpaper and black and white everywhere, then other people might walk in and go, what's going on here? And so I just always tell people, just be cautious of, and be aware of the market. I mean, if that's your thing and you love it, great. But not everyone, if you're planning on, selling in the future, everyone might not want black paint throughout the whole entire house. So, there's that balance of, live your life and enjoy it. But hey, if you have your eye on the resale market, gotta appeal to the masses rather than that, one person that's going to like what you do.
Yeah, definitely. That's good advice. One thing you mentioned too about the additions, that's got to be a nightmare because it's such a sticky, like gray area. And we've all walked into that house that's listed as a 3-2. And we walk into the 3rd bedroom and the floor feels completely different, and it's a different temperature and the ceiling's a little lower, and we're just like, like it's almost, I think, in my opinion, better to unless you do it 100% correct, an addition's not even worth it. That's just my opinion.
I mean, the market's probably going to pay something for it, but the market sniffs out quality. You can't fool buyers. I mean, if they're walking through the homes, I mean, they can, notice and go, hey, something's different here. And ultimately, they're going to pay more for a house that's more conforming and it looks like it was done to code. And, if it feels shoddy, then, we can't expect that the comps are going to be, beautiful, pristine homes that were originally built that size. I mean, it's often not the same thing.
Yeah, good point. So when real estate agents, talking about value, when real estate agents start running CMAs, comparative market analysis, what are they missing with that? What's incomplete or even dangerous for their clients?
Sure. So first I'll say that I have great relationships with realtors, and I learn a lot from agent friends. And when I'm stuck on something in a certain neighborhood, just yesterday I called someone and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this location in East Sacramento? And I gleaned some insight, and that was helpful. But I think some of the most common things that I see go wrong is if an agent is running a CMA based on an entire zip code or based on an MLS area where they're pulling data from this huge area rather than the neighborhood. And I just say for the appraiser's going in and appraising this property in a specific neighborhood. And so as much as possible, I'd say run your stats and pull your comps from, tighter neighborhood boundaries. Because if we're too wide, then, handing appraisers, so-called comps from 3 miles away in a suburban area, that might be a totally different market. So I see that, but I think maybe relying too heavily on price per square foot too. That's that's a huge and pretty common real estate sin, so to speak. And so it's a danger because it's not like there's just one price per square foot in a neighborhood. We can't just look at a property down the street and hijack this one figure, apply it to our own house, and say, boom, here's my value. Because price per square foot, it can change drastically depending on the condition of the house, the upgrades. Like in East Sacramento, price per square foot tends to range from 300 to 600. And so I think if I have a 2,000 square foot house, it's worth anywhere from 600,000 to 1.2 million. And so if I randomly pick this price per square foot figure and apply it to my house, I could be totally wrong. And so I just always back up and go, hey, what are actual similar properties selling for? And what are they getting into contract for today? Or what are they not selling for on the market if the market's slowed? Because, I think maybe if agents think a little bit more like appraisers in that apples to apples approach to comps, let me find some similar ones rather than imposing a price per square foot. That's huge. And I just find it's helpful to think like an appraiser.
Yeah, good information, definitely. Speaking of danger, I'm going to bring up the Z word. Talk to me about, and don't hold back, talk to me about your opinion of Zillow.
Zillow, oh boy.
The Z word.
So I think I hear a lot of times what agents hear. Agents will often hear, but Zillow says, and I actually hear that quite a bit for, my appraisal work and private clients who will order stuff. And it's almost like I have to defend my appraisal, or I have to, because they're coming in with Zillow thinking this is, absolute truth. And here is what they're seeing. So on one hand, Zillow is a neat online tool. They have some great aspects. I think they completely dominate the market in terms of a mobile view. No one is beating them. Okay. MLS, Realtor.com, no one can compete with how good Zillow works on a mobile phone. And it's just so easy to scroll through images. But at the same time, my problem is that consumers aren't looking at this website like it's just a ballpark. They're really trusting it. And so I have an issue with that. I've written a lot about Zillow. I don't have an axe to grind. I'm not angry with them, but I do get concerned. I think when consumers, sort of trust without really thinking critically about this company or realizing what they're doing. And I mean, honestly, I think that probably an unpopular opinion, but I think that they've seen a market and they're trying to change the game in real estate. And I mean, I got to tip my hat to companies that are progressive, even though I'm a fan of the traditional model and hope it stays around. I think Zillow is trying to disrupt the market and become that sort of one-stop shop where buyers will buy some of their homes because they're starting to buy homes, or you can list within. And so I think things are really changing in real estate right now. They're certainly not dominating the market in Sacramento by any stretch. I'm not even aware of them, buying local properties. But I think at some point, their goal is to, be buying, billions of dollars of real estate on a consistent basis. And so, will that work out? We'll see what happens. I'm really, in terms of their presence online, they've sort of established credibility, even though their values aren't credible. And so that's kind of that's the thing that really bothers me, because they quote this norm. I don't know if you've heard, they have this accuracy rate where they'll say our median error rate is 5%.
Yeah, you talked about this in your you talked about this in this week's blog and email blast, and it was awesome information. So I loved it. Tell us again about that error rate and what it means with 50% of the homes are.
Sure, yeah. And so the public hears that and goes, "Oh, dang, they're within 5%. That is so awesome." But the key thing is that they are within 5%, 50% of the time. And so it's basically another way of saying that would be we're within 5%, half the time, and half the time they're, however far they're off. But
that sounds like sounds like a Will Ferrell quote from Anchorman or something, right? Where it's like we're 50% correct 50% of the time or whatever.
Oh, totally. You can make stats say whatever you want. Like, I was just talking with someone on Twitter the other day, and I figured it out in my family. The average age in my family is 28 years old. And so I could be like, boom, this represents me. This is awesome. But I'm in my 40s, right? But I could use that stat and say, look how young I am, But then someone looks at my dad bod and they're like, no, dude, you're not 28. But seriously, and so there's ways, I think, where the numbers can be twisted. I don't want to get into it. I think we'll lose everyone. But that blog post is there, and I think that there's some things about their accuracy rate that I definitely have a problem with.
And you're way too nice and too kind and too well-spoken, because I'll just say Zillow sucks and they're Darth Vader and they're the evil empire trying to take over the world. So we need, that being said, if Zillow would like to advertise on my podcast, I'll say nice things about them all day long. But
hey, they seriously are trying to take over. But
yeah. You mentioned your blog, just to shoot it in there. What's your blog website?
Hey, thanks, Norm. It's SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com.
Perfect. And no BS. Ryan does an amazing job with this and I know it's a lot of time, and he's been doing it a long time. What was it, like the 10th anniversary or 5th anniversary of your blog or something?
Yeah, I just had my 10-year last month or a couple months ago. Yeah, so it's been an awesome journey. It's really been a game changer for me too.
That's a labor of love. Labor of love, and anyone who wants really, really good, specific, and well thought out and well explained information about the market and values and just in general in the Sacramento area, definitely should check that out. SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. I know I'm a fan.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Hey, so let's put on the crystal ball. Let's take out the crystal ball here and put you on the spot and give you difficult questions that are unanswerable, but we'll make you answer them anyways.
Okay.
What's the market going to do in Sacramento? What are we looking at in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years?
Well, like I tend to say, I'll tell you in 1, 3, and 5 years what the market did.
Great answer.
So that's always the question. People look and say, what is the market going to do? And it's kind of like, what if I turned the table and said, what's going to be in style? What's going to be fashionable in 5 years? What video games are going to be popular? What's the suicide rate going to be like in the United States? What's the unemployment rate going to be? I mean, we could use so many different factors, but it's a prediction. And for somehow, I think in real estate, we think that it's just so much easier to predict the market for whatever reason, but we have to realize that the future hasn't happened yet. And so, but what I will say is that markets tend to behave in cycles, and we've had a 7-year run of price increases. And at some point, it would be reasonable and normal to expect for the market to enter a different phase where, values soften or decline. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be 2005 through 2007 again, but markets tend to behave in this cyclical manner. And so what would be more surprising is to see values continue to rise at the rate that they've been increasing. And in fact, the market lately has been a little bit more flat, and it's still really competitive and aggressive out there. But in terms of price growth, it's been pretty modest lately. And I think that just shows that, the market is slowing compared to, it was on major steroids in 2012, 2013. It's just not the same as it was. But, so it's impossible to say with certainty, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the market do a different thing at some point. And it really is a guess, though, with, say, the market did turn, how much would it turn? That's what no one knows. No one knows the exact time or by how much, and there's no sort of bubble formula or, that every time a market turns, it would be this utter collapse, because what we had in 2005 through 7, we had a total collapse of a market that was utterly built on fraud. And so we don't have that sort of dynamic in today's market. We don't have the ticking time bomb of adjustable rate mortgages, but we do have a market that's built on historically low rates for 7 years. We do have some unhealthy elements for sure. And I think people are struggling more with affordability, but what will happen in the future? Norm, I will tell you in the future.
That's good answer, good advice. And I think you hit on something that people hear, that the market is declining, slowing, tightening, entering the next cycle, and they start freaking out, or the panic or the fear comes into it. But that's normal. We're not talking, slowing means the home value appreciation rate is slowing, not that it's going 20% negative overnight. So, if we went from, 8%, whatever, 6%, appreciation, I don't know what it's been, to all of a sudden 3 or 4% or 0% for a year or two, that's actually very healthy for the market, and it keeps it balanced. It keeps it from overheating. So, just touch on that maybe, just to put people's minds at ease.
Absolutely. So, I'm definitely not a big doom and gloom guy. I'm a big fan of whatever the market's doing. I'm going to speak the truth, and whether that's something that people want to hear or not. But I think the truth is, it is kind of what you said for right now, where the market is still showing some forward progress, but it's like Barry Habib's analogy that I love so much. The market was going 80 miles per hour, but now it feels like it's going more like 20 or 30. Mm-hmm. And so what will it do in the future? That's just a guess, but I always remind people that most of the time in real estate, people don't buy based on where prices are at, or where we're at in a market cycle. They tend to buy based on affordability and their lifestyle. And so if they can afford a house and it's time to move or time to buy, then they're going to buy, right? And so I constantly ask people, when I see that they bought in 2012 at the bottom of the market, I say, did you know it was the bottom of the market? And you know what they say almost 100% of the time? No. And so it just reminds us that even though we like to think that we're these experts in timing the market, and that it's all about timing, I've got to buy at the right time, practically speaking, it very rarely actually happens, right? And so I think in some senses that brings comfort to people, because you got to think like, well, yeah, you kind of buy when you buy, but you better be comfortable with the payment and the neighborhood if you do have to ride down the market eventually. So that's been my advice. I've had that conversation so many times over the past 3 or 4 years.
And that's something that, anyone in real estate, or realtors especially, as they're talking to clients about buying, selling, dispensing solid information, they should really follow that advice, listen to what you say, and definitely go on your website. That's fantastic. With your business, how big are you trying to grow it? Where are you going with it? I mean, you just chugging along. What are your plans for your business?
So I would like to continue to diversify my business and, work on even more interesting appraisals, more complex appraisals. And eventually I'll likely get my commercial appraisal license. That's down the road, but I see myself working in the future with, continuing to work with the real estate community, lots of realtors and real estate professionals, but also working with, a lot of high-powered attorneys. And so that's exciting for me. I think that the market's in a place where I think the appraisal profession's really changing, and there's this need for appraisers to diversify and to be really good at the hard stuff, the complex properties. And so that's certainly my goal as I sort of see the market changing before my eyes.
Fantastic. All right, now a couple fun questions for you to wrap it up here, and super duper appreciate your time. For you, what is your preference for you and your family? An oceanfront shack, a top of the mountain lodge, or a penthouse on the top floor of a city skyscraper?
Oh man, I would say oceanfront, hands down, all the way. Forget the downtown. That's not my vibe. I need more space. Beach over mountains any day.
And you're a SoCal guy, so that makes sense, huh? The shack by the gorgeous beach, and you're happy.
Heck yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just put a hammock out there, right?
That's right. I imagine like that's kind of what you're doing right now. That's pretty much what I want. So
trying. I actually live in very ironically, one of the biggest cities in the world, and I'm not a city guy, but it's like the perfect little home base with infrastructure and amenities, and it's more modern, and I get whatever I need. But then I could scoot out to the airport and fly anywhere and hit those little beaches. So
yeah.
But okay, another one. This is a good question that I always ask all of our guests, and we've had some great answers. What advice would you give your younger self, 10, 15 years ago, about business, appraisals, real estate, or just anything in life?
Gosh, so I have so many imperfections. It'd be nice to correct them all, right? So I think one thing that I would do differently, I would tell myself to take better care of myself, physically. And I sound like I'm this really out of shape dude. I mean, I'm not. I could lose, 15 pounds. But I think as I've had some, stomach issues in recent years, it's just reminded me of, you know what? I wish when I was 15 and 20 that I would have treated my gut a little bit differently. And so that would be huge advice. But, obviously just the main stuff, just love your wife, love your kids, put them before anything. And the rest, everything seems to fall in place. I maybe remind myself with my first home, don't buy a house right before 2005.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. You could go back and give your younger self that advice, as well as the Super Bowl. Give your younger self the Super Bowl winners for the next 10 years. That wouldn't hurt either, huh?
Oh, for sure. For sure. There you go. Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, how do realtors, loan officers, consumers, homeowners, how does everyone get in touch with you?
Sure. They can hit me up on my blog, SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com. I'm always on Twitter. I love Twitter, Sac Appraiser, or, I'm on pretty much everything, Facebook. Not hard to reach.
Perfect. Well, I don't say this lightly, but you are a real asset to the real estate community in Sacramento. You do a great job. I know a lot of it's behind the scenes, and you never ask for, the glitz, the glamour, the promotion. You just love to help, and so people should definitely take advantage of that. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Ryan.
Hey, thanks. It was a real honor. I hope people like it. And I just say, hey, if they have questions, let's keep the conversation going in the comments. So really, really appreciate you, Norm, and love what you're doing. So keep up the good work.